Hey, what is going on, everyone? This is Dorrani and Alex and James and Sherif and Connor from VG247.com, and we're all together today to discuss our games of the year. What a year it's been, guys. How are you?
I'm good. Glad it's over. Almost.
Yeah, I'm
Bring on the end.
Looking forward to a Christmas break where I will play a lot of some games, avoid a lot of other games, and build a lot of Lego. I think I'm tired and done with the year at this point.
No more video games.
Yeah, James, how are you, man?
Good. Avoiding stuff sounds good. I'm big on the avoidance. Let's go.
Yeah, Connor.
Yeah, doing great. Excited for some time off and some relaxation. It's a good time for that, apparently.
Yeah, I'm doing well as well. I'm quite excited to speak about the game of the year stuff.
Been a funny year, I think, because I don't think it's been a great year. It's been a good year.
Yeah.
I was sort of, when I was thinking about my game of the year, I was looking back at this list. Obviously, I'm big on role-playing games, and I don't think it was a great year for RPGs. In particular, there were like no big Western RPGs, apart from like Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's been some gap, but then there has been some real killer stuff, which I guess we're going to talk about, right?
Yeah, but I think we're gearing up though, because of course we are on what I think is the end of a pandemic, where we're like coming out of one. I would like to think. A lot of these like developers are, they're still.
Yeah, you've tempted fate there. It's all your.
The thing
I single-handedly ruined the world just by saying.
The thing I'll say is this, right? Like, a lot of games got pushed out of this year into next year. Even a lot of games that we don't know about, or a lot of games that we know about but the public doesn't know about, got pushed into next year or even into early 23. So I think next year is going to be big, and there's going to be some big games because it's going to be stuff that was always going to come out next year, plus some stuff that got pushed. The question is, if this new variant kicks off and it all goes bang off, I think then that makes 2023 questionable for games. I think the stuff that's going to make next year good is almost in the can now, which is good.
Yeah. Q1 of next year is looking
it's busy.
Stacked. It's looking stacked. Consumers, your wallet's going to be burning.
But you can't underestimate how much, it's been a weird year, and you can't underestimate how much COVID has decimated things. There's a game that I know of that on its original plan would have been out by now, and it's just been delayed to Q4 next year. It was delayed to the spring and then to the summer, and now it's been pushed again
like a year.
So it's so it's definitely, but delayed games are better than shit games, right? So
that's it. And we've had so many shit games this year. Oh my god. Oh my god. Big up all the game developers though.
And we're about to
talk about a game this year, so it ain't been that bad.
Right, let's hop in. So as I said, we're gonna go sort of just one by one, saying our game of the year, and then the runners up. We're just gonna say, these are like close seconds, because it's really hard to just say, this was the best game and just this. When there's so many great games. When I thought about it, when I looked through the list of games that released this year, I was like, oh shit, maybe this is my game of the year. Maybe that's my game of the year as well. So that's why we have the runners up. We won't be focusing too hard on the runners up lists. But there's games here that just absolutely need to be mentioned, I think. As you can see, there is 5 of us here. And I've got a message from our editor-in-chief who couldn't make it today.
Esteemed editor.
He sent me an email and it says, quote, statement from Tom Ori, editor-in-chief, VG247, regarding Game of the Year 2021. I'm sorry I couldn't take part in this video discussion, but it's not my fault that I'm very important and have very important things to do. Right. I would like for it to be known that Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is the best game of the year, this does not make me a Sony pony. In fact, other than Ratchet, I've barely used the PS5 this year. That said, it's 2 years in a row that I've given Game of the Year to a PS5 exclusive. And with God of War Ragnarok coming in 2022, it might make 3 in a row. We'll see. I am, in fact, an Xbox Pops, a man, Pops, an old man who likes Xbox, and I hope this term takes off in 2022. End quotation. Thank you, Tom.
Thank
for oh yes,
with us in spirit.
Yeah.
With us in spirit. So we are going to be kicking it off with Alex first. Just going to say that this is a freestyle conversation. You know, I've got notes for mine. Alex is good at just going off. He's a wealth of knowledge.
I have not got any notes. Yeah,
exactly. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is a freestyle conversation. Doesn't matter if you mess up. We're all adults here, right? Game of the Year and your 2 runners up, Alex.
Might be 2 runners up, but I'll just list them because I think this is the thing about this year. It's been interesting. When I looked back at it, I was like, that this hasn't been a year where there's been that 1 or even 2 or even 3 standout mega games, but it's been a year where there have been quite a few really good games. Yeah. So, and I'm going to do it backwards just because I'm contrarian like that. So, you know, I'd say my 2 main runners-up would be Deathloop, which I just think is a fabulous game. And what's interesting is I'm not an Arcane person. I'm not, you know, this website used to employ Kurt McKean, who is like the ultimate Arcane fanboy. He will preach to anyone about how amazing Arcane is. And it's that thing of, I always understood how good Dishonored and Prey were, and I always respect them, but I was never one of those people that was like, oh my god, Arcane is one of the best studios on the planet. Oh my god, you've got to play Dishonored. I was like, yeah, it's okay. This is the game for me this is Arcane making a game that speaks to me and makes me feel the way a lot of people felt about Dishonored and Prey and stuff like that. I think it's excellent. You know, I think the story's fun and intriguing, and the characters are well written, well performed. I love the Art Deco 60-ish sort of 40s to 60s sort of mixed aesthetic. Yeah, it's good. So that's the first one. Second one would be, I'm torn between 2. I'm going to say Hitman. I'm going to say Hitman 3. I think a lot of people forget about that because it came out all the way back in January. It was like, it came out so late that I think we had review code before Christmas. I distinctly remember I was just playing it in the Christmas break last year. But it's just excellent. And I think when you think about that game, forget the game for a second, but when you think about the circumstances, you know, IO was a Square Enix subsidiary. They made the first Hitman reboot. It didn't perform the way Square Enix wanted. Square was kind enough to let them go and take the franchise rather than just like shut them, which, you know, I don't always give Square Enix credit. I think they are a boneheaded company a lot of the time, but, you know, fair play. Like, that is not something EA or many of us would have done. They let them go. Then they went to Warner Brothers. I remember going to see Hitman 2 at Warner booth at E3 and thinking like, Warner's a weird fit for this game. I remember thinking like, this is not a good fit, and I thought the way it was being marketed and stuff wasn't quite right. Came out, seemed to do okay, but obviously not that okay because Warner didn't want to have another one. And then they've self-published the third one, and it feels like they found their feet with this self-publishing. Obviously, they took a big fat check off Epic, right? And they took a check off Sony to do VR stuff, but they found a way to make this truly happen. When you take it all together, the fact you can play all the levels from the previous games in the third one as well still is just brilliant. It's an incredible package. And the other thing I will say is, it is that final level of this game, and I won't spoil what it is, but that final level of this game has come in for a lot of criticism about not being a great Hitman level. However, to me, that final level is like an audition for their James Bond game, and it makes me really fucking excited that James Bond game. That last level, it reminds me even of a level from a James Bond game. It reminds me of a level from GoldenEye. So, yeah. So Hitman.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just go on, Ty.
Go on. Yeah. No, I was gonna say. Were you finished with your Hitman?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to say, did anyone else have Hitman in their runners up?
Yeah, Hitman is it's tough because whenever something comes out right at the start of the year, as Alex alluded to at the start, it gets completely forgotten about. But obviously, us being the purveyors of absolute gaming perfection would never forget about anything so good. And it's interesting you say that I think a lot of the buzz when Hitman 3 first came out was around the detective level right at the start, and people were saying how that level was maybe the audition for the Bond game, that you're going to go around, you're going to find these different things. But I think a point that you made at the time was that that's not a very Bond thing to do. How many times does he turn up in a tweed coat and ask questions? That's Knives Out. That's the wrong Daniel Craig, isn't it? But yeah, exactly what you said. I think the main thing for me in Hitman 3 was the further refinement of the mission objectives that you get that kind of guide you through the different possibilities. That when I think I was a little bit young for the original Hitman games. I think Silent Assassin was like 2004 and all that sort of stuff. So the sandbox was a little bit lost on me. But the way that this latest Hitman game is structured is a lot more accessible. It makes you feel a lot smarter. Makes you feel like you're organically stumbling onto these different opportunities. And I think of it almost like almost like a Tony Hawk game where you're kind of going around ticking off different. You're collecting all of the ASSS letters to create assassin or something. It's you just go around ticking off the different objectives, and the levels are so multi-layered and so different. And yeah, it's just a really good game that I think everybody should check out, even if they've bounced off the older ones or it's a series that people have thought, oh, that's not for me. I was a little bit young when the OG games came out or whatever. It's a really good starting point for the series, even though it's the end of a trilogy.
Yeah,
definitely aging well. Yeah,
I love that Tony Hawk comparison. By the way, as a person who's never played Hitman before, I want to know what Hitman is, because see, when Hitman came out, like the most recent one. No, it wasn't the most recent one. It was the one just before. You guys would tell me. I saw a clip of a guy throwing like a briefcase like around the corner.
Yeah,
what is this? What is going on here?
So that is like that speaks to IO's attitude, where Hitman is a game with a serious story about an assassin and the Illuminati and all that sort of stuff. However, it's also extremely dumb. So you could you've got the kills in the missions that are, you snipe them from a distance and stuff like that. You choke them out with piano wire, quite brutal. But then you've also got, I'm going to drop a piano on someone's head, or I'm going to beat them to death with a fish or whatever. And that briefcase thing was a bug where the briefcase accidentally was homing in on people. But the developers were just like, that's pretty good. We'll leave that in. And so and Hitman's great, and I can't wait to see what IO do with James Bond. It's like I am not someone, and I'm not throwing shade on here when I say this, but quite a common thing for a lot of games media people to want to do is to go and work in development. I'm not one of those people. I don't really have much or any interest in that. However, when they announced that Bond game, was like one of the few times in my life where I was like, I'm just going to go and look at their recruitment page. As it happens, I wouldn't move to Stockholm anyway. But I'm so excited for that. Just because I'm taking up a lot of time, just to quickly say, so there was a few other games that I wanted to shout out. Some of them you guys might be mentioning anyway. But so. Just very, very quickly, Metroid Dread, I know some people are going to talk about that. It's excellent, very close to being high on my list. Forza Horizon 5, just ridiculous. It's a 5-star game. And I realise people with very small brains will be like, why are you saying your game of the year? Or why are you putting 4-star games as runners-up above the game that you gave 5 stars to? And it's like, well, it's not quite... It's a complicated... It's a complicated thing. This is about my personal... feelings in a way that is slightly different to a review, where it's about your personal feelings. It is effective, but you put a spin on it of you think about the wider implications of the game in a review. And so, Forza Horizon 5 game, excellent. Guardians of the Galaxy is the best video game story of the year. Genuinely effective in some places. Like, there is one particular sequence where it makes you do something, and it's fucking raw. It's really good. It's really, really good.
I can't believe, before you continue, I can't believe that Guardians of the Galaxy, that has to be like the best preview to release turnaround I've ever seen.
Yeah, but you know what? I
What?
said it, and you guys, I said in the preview, I said, this looks all right, and you guys were all going like,
Yeah, because
And-
the
fucking
story
great.
and stuff you can't appreciate from like a preview. You
Yeah,
need to.
I
you
got,
need
the, I got the feeling. It was the dialogue and stuff. And I was like, man, this is going to be all right. Whereas with
Yeah.
Avengers, I played it, and they all clapped after I finished playing it, which was really awkward.
Oh god.
And I thought to myself, this is not going to be
Good.
what they want it to be in terms of. No, it was this sort of thing. Avengers is fine. It's just not great, and it's not the game that you want after
Mhm.
spending $100 million or whatever the hell they spent.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah. So Guardians best story of the year. Mass Effect Legendary Edition is really good, but the Xbox version still has bugs where certain achievements don't pop. Fuck you, BioWare. I love you, BioWare, but please fix those bugs. That's doing my head in. It's actually put me off finishing the trilogy in that package. And just quickly, SMT5 is great, and Tales of Arise is great.
Yeah.
And my actual game of the year is Halo Infinite.
Woo!
So here's
Great
the thing.
choice.
Here's the thing I'd say, right? Is if you'd asked me at the start of the year what my status was as a Halo fan, I would have described myself as like a lapsed Halo fan. You know, there's Master Chief is up there. There's a Halo 3 era Master Chief figurine, right? And he's in good company. There's Samus up there. There's Sonic up there. There's an R-Wing from Star Fox up there. So he's in good company. That was how much I loved Halo in the Halo 3 era. And I've completely dropped off it since then.
Yeah.
Just like, things like I probably played 100 hours of like Halo Wars 1 and then Halo Wars 2. I was like, eh. And, as a Command & Conquer fan, Halo Wars 1 was just like, oh, this is a Command & Conquer game. This is great. And, yeah, and Halo 5, I played it, but I do not remember what happened at all, really, apart from the very big headline stuff. And that Luke Cage is in it.
That's
And,
the of Locke, isn't it? Yeah, that's his name's Locke, right? Yeah.
yeah. And so I went into Halo Infinite and I was like, well, I just hope it's half decent. And you have to give credit to 343. It's not just half decent. It's very, very, very good. And you have to give credit to them because they clearly, after 5, had a serious think and recalibrated in some very big ways. Be that dropping story threads. It's sort of like, it's kind of funny how the main enemy faction in Infinite is just some dudes parachuted in from Halo Wars 2. So they were just like, we were doing before wasn't necessarily working. But it takes balls to hold your hands up and say, right, we're going to do that. It took balls for Microsoft to delay it for a whole year. And you can see, I think this is a hard thing for our readers, our end users to appreciate as much because they don't get to see games in development as much. But we get to play preview builds all the time, and you get a feel for where a game is at, and you get a feel for if a game is going to be polished and stuff like that, or at least I feel like I get a pretty good steer on that. I can sit down with a game for 10 minutes, 6 months from release, 9 months from release, and have a pretty good idea. And you can tell when you have that sort of knowledge in your brain, you can look at Infinite and go, I can see where practically every drop of that extra year went. Even though the game launched with some really weird gaps, like not being able to replay campaign missions without starting a new game.
Or co-op.
Like,
It's not perfect.
And it's like, because I've seen people say, why didn't they spend that year adding mission select, adding co-op? And I'm like, if they had, the game probably would have been bad. So I'm really glad they spent the time in the right ways. And I just love it. The multiplayer's great. I'm just a Halo person again. Like, this is, I mean, literally, the last thing I did before coming into this was send a WhatsApp message to the WhatsApp group of my mates saying, are we arranging some Halo sessions over the course of the holidays where we all just get online? And we haven't done that as a group since Reach. So I think that says, that speaks volumes. I just think it's really, really, really good. It's definitely a game that, as I said in the review, which ruffled a lot of moron feathers, it's not perfect, but I am very, very excited also to sort of see where it goes now. The game sort of sets up the ability for them to grow the game as a service, both the multiplayer and the single player side, to expand over time. And I think they've got such a good toolbox, such a good sandbox, such a good set of abilities and skills and weapons and stuff like that, that they might be able to do some really special things for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe more. So yeah, Halo Infinite, I'm thrilled with it. I really am.
Yeah. I think that's nice what you said about you and your mates, not to get sentimental, because
No, yeah, but
I know how people like will interpret things, but that sort of stuff, that
the
stuff
thing
means a
is,
lot to me, man.
we have done it with other games. We played a lot of Battlefield 5, God knows why.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But this is the first time we've returned to Halo in this way, and I think that really,
I think that's
really,
awesome.
really,
I think that's
really
awesome. From the preview, when they first showed like the gameplay for Halo and the graphics weren't really up to par, it's a good turnaround. It was a good turnaround.
The other thing I'd say is also shout out to Microsoft. There's still a lot of stuff in that game where it could be a lightning rod for negativity. There's still a lot of iffy graphics stuff and, like I say, the lack of campaign, mission replay and stuff like that. And despite that, they still sent it to us like a month early and gave me not an uninterrupted month. They took it away for 1 week in the middle so the devs could do a bunch of fixes, then gave it us back. But the point is, we had 3 weeks with that game before launch, which is very rare. You don't even get 3 weeks with 80-hour RPGs a lot of the time. I had to review Final Fantasy 15 in 70 hours, and the game's 50 hours long. So and I think that always, we need to praise that more in public, which is why I bring it up, because if we praise it in public, maybe other publishers will think more about the way they give review access and how early they give review access and stuff like that, which only then results in better reviews, better criticism, better accuracy and stuff like that, better thought out for the readers, which is good for it. Then everybody wins. Unless the game's bad and then the publisher wins, but
Yeah. Well said. I totally agree with what you said. Halo is a good choice. So I'm glad we're starting off with that as the first game.
Also, finally, just before you move on to someone else, I just also want to say, I also want to say, the best thing of the year is the Analog Pocket, which is absolutely radical. It's ridiculous.
Hold it up to the camera beautiful. A bit more. So
it's just. Have I got a cart here somewhere? It's just a ridiculous piece of equipment. I mean, it's just a posh Game Boy, right? Like, this is the thing. It's just. But if you like retro games and you're in the market for a cool device that will play,
how much is that?
Everything. $120.
How much?
$220. Ooh. But it is absolutely beautiful. The screen is gorgeous. It is.
No, we can't just gloss past that price of $200. Oi,
$20 are just.
That's definitely luxury. Definitely luxury. Whoa.
It's a device for people who really like retro games. And
that's fair enough,
me
man.
Probably makes clear where I stand on that. But it's really, really good. I think it is literally the thing that I've been most impressed with this year. So I think I would be remiss not to at least mention it.
Yeah, man, definitely. Right. Well said, Alex. Moving on now to James. Hit us up. One of your runners up has already been said, right? With Hitman. But what are your game of the year and your other one? Don't do it in reverse like Alex did.
I'm just comparing.
I'm doing it in reverse order. We've set a precedent now.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay, go for it. Let's hear it
now.
When it comes to your turn, you can do what you want. But when it's my turn,
wow,
I'm going to do the second one first, the third one second, and the first one last. Yeah, think about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so to echo a lot of what Alex said, it's been. I think there's a bit of a temptation when there hasn't been a huge amount of pinnacle standout games to say it's a bit of a meh year, but there have been lots of very good games and a lot that get that should get a mention that we probably won't do. Hitman was definitely one of those games, but another one of my runners up is Forza Horizon 5. So
Mhm.
I think that's a really special game in a lot of ways. I think that kind of game only comes along once every couple of consoles that you get one of these accessible races, because racing games, I think, alongside fighting games, are treated as a bit of a niche within a niche. That
Yeah.
we're more than happy to learn where all of the rats hiding around corners are in Dark Souls and all of that sort of stuff. But I'm not sure about learning when to press the brake at the right time. I don't really play racing games. I don't like that sort of stuff. But if you talk about something like Burnout Paradise, or for people that are a little bit older, Need for Speed Underground 2, you get
Jeez.
a real
What
you
game?
get a real kind of emotional reaction from people that are like, I really, really love those games. And I think that Forza Horizon 5 has the potential to be that game for a new kind of generation of people, that it has that mix of accessibility, but enough challenge if you want it, enough kind of an engaging kind of collectathon to get all the different cars, and the kind of graphical clout and the customizability to make something that a lot of people really enjoy. And there's not a huge amount to say about it other than that, to be honest.
One thing with Forza, I think when it released, a lot of people were saying that it's just more Forza. What do you think about people saying that?
Well, I completely agree with that criticism. And to go on a little personal rant here, I didn't like Forza Horizon 4 because it was set where I used to live, and I really hated where I used to live. So so that game can get in the bin. I was
Yeah.
offended. So
I liked
okay, here we go.
I liked Horizon 4 because it was like, I don't know, there's something about seeing British road signs and
Well, yeah. So here you go. So it was so. What happened with Forza Horizon 4, which offended me even more, was that I confused it with. Do you remember The Crew?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Crew was that game where it was the
whole of
USA,
America, right? Yeah.
all of America, exactly. And so I was like,
Was it? I was gonna say it. No,
Yeah, all is
all is
extremely.
So I was like,
some
oh
really
my
heavy
god, here we
lifting
go.
there, but-
Forza Horizon 4, it's set in the UK. I'm going to be driving down Rochdale High Street. I'm going to be looking at my mum's house. It's going to be amazing. And then it's just a kind of grotty corner of Wiltshire where there's spiders and stuff. So
Yeah.
You
The
have to
same thing
imagine
with Watch Dogs as
on
well,
that
by the
topic.
way.
You have to imagine that someone at Microsoft is thinking about that flight simulator tech, and thinking about if it would be possible to sort of do that map shit for a racing game.
I mean, that's the
But,
big game, right? That's
but
the lofty goal.
yeah, it's a big ask, but it's like with AI development tools and stuff now, where you can fill in and stuff, might be a bit possible. Obviously, Flight Sim has the advantage of you're very far away. You'd have to generate a bunch of textures, but I'm sure someone's thinking it for something in 10 years.
But
did Google
the thing
close
the thing
its
I'd
studio?
say, what's that?
Did Google close its dev studio for state exclusive Stadia games? They've got the map.
Oh, that's all
right.
dead,
They could have done it, but
they let all those guys go. But yeah, I mean, to what the question you asked, Dorrani, I just want to say, as someone who also had Forza on their long list, I think this is probably the last time that Playground Games can sort of make that same game again and get absolute critical acclaim for it. The next one is going to have to do something different, I think.
Cops and robbers.
So we'll see. This is the thing. This is the dangerous path you go down. Right. This was what Need for Speed struggled with in the 360 era. There was a different bullshit gimmick in every game, and most of them were pretty pants.
right.
But hopefully they think of something. And of course, don't think that's now a 2-team studio. And I imagine, although I'm sure there are people already working on the next Forza Horizon, I imagine both studios now are largely focused on Fable. So we'll see if there is a Horizon 6 in 2 years, or maybe they'll take a bit of a break.
Send Forza to space. That's where we need to go next. No, I do want to say, you mentioned Need for Speed. I just want to say, big up the older Need for Speed soundtracks. That's all I want to say. The soundtracks in those games, for me,
Yeah, and that's another thing that they've brought into to Horizon 5, isn't it? It's got a great eclectic mix of all sorts of different stuff from things I've never heard of to bring me the Horizon. So
Yeah.
yeah.
There's some nice liquid drum and bass in Forza Horizon 5 that I like.
Yeah, stuff I've never heard of, yeah.
Yeah. Connor and Sherif, do you have anything to say about Forza?
It's great. I like to drive cars fast, and I can do that in Forza.
I thought that was the end of the sentence. I like to drive.
Yeah, I gave it a bit of a go, and I had a good time with it. I'm not the biggest fan of racing games, but the fact that even I could, just jump in and have a good bash of it, I mean, it kind of speaks to its quality, right? Bring on the AI generated whole of UK, please.
Yeah.
I didn't play as much of it as I wanted to this year. I loved 4. Like, I loved that game. I think if I spend more time with this, I will love it as well. So far, it's been, like Alex mentioned, kind of more of the same to a large extent. If you're someone who put like 100 hours into each of the last Horizons, a lot of the stuff they're doing is like, okay, yeah, all right, let's see the let's see the new stuff. So they have the adventures and the new stuff that's interesting and amazing, but most of it is still Horizon in a new area, in a new level, which again is fine, totally fine. But I'm not excited about it the same way I am. Like, maybe it's fatigue, maybe it's like just didn't have enough time with it to be excited about it. But yeah, I'm a little down on it, but not because of any problems that it has. The only thing that I will just mention is the soundtrack. I'm not a fan of the soundtrack this time around. A lot of the South American songs that they chose, I guess, is not my thing. 4, I pretty much liked a lot of the radio stations. They have Hospital Records back, which I love, but I just like something about the soundtrack in 4 was kind of more appealing to me. Well, yeah, Horizon is just, last thing I'll say about it is that a friend of mine who doesn't play a lot of video games loves the Horizon games, and kind of came into him late. And I just love seeing him break records and just be like, you're the top 1% of whatever this weird, speed track or whatever. And just see him like kind of engage with the different components. It just makes me happy to see him like kind of engage with the video game in that way.
Yeah, that's great. And
we haven't mentioned it's just the best showcase for the Series X that there is right now. Well, at least probably will be until Hellblade comes out. It's like if you've got if you are getting one of those machines this holiday season and you get a Game Pass subscription and you want a game to put on your OLED telly that's going to melt your eyeballs off, it's that game. Yeah,
stunning.
The setting, you mentioned it being in the UK. Well, Forza Horizon 4 being in the UK. What is this claim of like being able to capture a whole country in like? I need devs to stop doing that, because you see Watch Dogs Legion.
You know what though? I think they do a good job of it. Well, Watch Dogs Legion, but in the Forza Horizon, I feel like they do a good job of just like doing here's a snapshot of the culture of this country, and they do that with the voiceovers and some of the characters in Horizon 4 in particular. They obviously did a bunch of Top Gear stuff, and they actually got the Top Gear presenters to record voiceover. Now, admittedly, that's new Top Gear, which is less popular and less recognizable than when it was, I mean, say what you will, they are often quite reprehensible people, but the show was definitely better when it was those guys, even if they are shits. And just thinking about me describing them as shits, having been on Top Gear Gaming show this year. Well, I mean, so they find ways to make it. I like when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this is a cute, fun little interpretation of Britain. Which is why it was a dark, dank corner games with spiders.
So, continuing on, James.
Yeah, on to my next runner-up then. This is an interesting one for me because I think about it in terms of how can a game be a little bit disappointing but still be one of the best games of the year. And I think that this game definitely is one of the best games of the year. But personally for me, I had a lot of expectations going into it, and that's my own fault. And that game is Resident Evil Village. So I think have we all played Resident Evil Village? It is an exceptional game. It's fantastic. The atmosphere is incredible. The way that it looks, we're talking about showcases for new consoles. I played it on PS5. It looks fantastic. There's a lot of incredible gothic ambience. There's a lot of incredible, instantly iconic characters in that game. It's a really tight and playable and interesting story. You can be quiet until I finish talking, Dorrani. But at the same time, and in the written version of this video, I talk about it in terms of Capcom trying to capture lightning in a bottle 3 times now. The Resident Evil 2 remake was the first time, and that was a really startling original take on that formula and had a lot of really interesting things in it, Mr. X particularly, and it was really an incredible distillation of that tight 8 to 10 to 4 if you go really fast hour story. And then basically with Village they're trying to do it again with a lot of the same mechanics, a lot of the same mechanics, and it just doesn't wear quite as well the second time when you've seen some of the surprises before. And where I think it is still one of the best games of the year is that if you could go into that fresh and you could see all of those things for the first time, you would think that they were absolutely amazing. And I'm incredibly jealous of you if you're able to do that. If you haven't played Resi 2 Remake and you can go into Village completely fresh, you've not seen any of the kind of hunter AI, or you can kind of puzzle over the intricacies of like how esoteric the item puzzles are and all this sort of stuff, and you're not thinking, oh yeah, I've seen all this, I've done this one before, this is like that bit from that game, this is like that bit from that game. It's fantastic. You'd probably say it's what you could probably put it in one of your favorite games ever if you hadn't seen all of this stuff before. But it's just tough to, as I say, retread some of that same ground.
It suffers because
retreading the same ground.
It suffers because 2 Remake and 7 are so good. It's that you compare it to 2 a lot. For me, it's more about 7. The vampire stuff is very similar to when you're first in the house with Jack in 7.
Yeah.
And I said at the time 7 was made, and I stand by this, I think 7 is one of the best paced video games ever made. And pacing is really hard. Pacing can make or break a video game. And it's like Final Fantasy VII, one of the most special things about Final Fantasy VII is how well it's paced. And one of the most impressive things about 7 Remake is it takes just like a third of that game, turns it into a full game. And that's perfectly paced as well. But Resi 7 is like just absolutely pitch perfect in terms of the beats of how you power up. It makes perfect sense, where it rarely does make sense in video games, but it makes perfect sense that you start out the game afraid and vulnerable, and you end the game like John Rambo ripping through loads of the creatures when you're in the mines and stuff.
Right.
Where 6 hours earlier, one of those creatures made you shit yourself, and now you're blowing them away like they're nothing, and they're spawning out monster closets and stuff. And so I think Resi 7 is perfectly paced. If I had to, I also think 8 of Village is an excellent game. I think like you said, it's them trying to capture lightning in a bottle twice. It's also them trying to make a sequel to RE7, but also touch on the things that made 4 beloved, clearly. And I just think the main thing about that game is it isn't quite as well paced. And in fact, the thing that I would say, and I don't know any of this for absolute certain, but my feeling is probably that quite a lot was cut out of that game. I think, I think basically they didn't want to delay it. They didn't want to wait. Like there was a lot of talk before it came out about at the very early point in the game where you meet that girl and you go into that house and then the house is on fire and stuff like that. Right. Supposedly, the claim is there was an entire section of the game where you played as that girl.
Ooh.
That's just and similarly, you can sort of tell the vampire house is very fleshed out. The doll one is small but very intricate, but then I think the last 2, especially the last one, feel quite like they were put together quite quickly by comparison. And so I think that's probably what that's about. But but I still think it's great. I really like where it leaves the Resident Evil series.
Yeah,
and I'm far more interested in 9 or whatever they do next than a remake of 4. Although I know that's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get both eventually, but we're gonna get a remake of 4 first.
Yeah.
But I do think probably for me it's all about the pacing. The thing that makes 8 inferior to 9, it's inferior to 7. Sorry, but it is very good, and I think back to back, 7 and 8 is like one of the best. If you were going to sit and play both games back to back over the course of a weekend or a couple of weekends, I think you'd struggle to find 2 games that go together and are that good of a cohesive whole.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to say Resident Evil, like Village, is one of the games I put. When like my friends who only buy like 3 games a year.
Yeah.
Resident Evil always comes to mind when it comes to game recommendations for people that just can pick up 1 or 2 games. I'll say Resident Evil Village. So yeah, no, it's a great pick. I really enjoy my time with it. As someone who was brand new to Resident Evil, imagine starting on the 8th one and still having such a good time. I know it's not the 8th one in the the actual order, because there's more than 8, right? There's
way more.
Well,
Like,
the main line,
but even in the main line, there's 0, so there's more than 8.
So starting so late and still having such a good time with it, absolutely, man. I speak very highly of Resident Evil 8. Anyone else got anything to say about Resi? No?
They should have remade Code Veronica instead of 4. I know they're remaking 4, but they made the wrong choice. They should have
made that instead of 3.
3 was alright.
Death to all remakes. Right. And your game of the year, James?
So, yeah, just dropping the most hipster choice of any of them right in the middle of the video podcast. I think my game of the year for 2021 is The Forgotten Sea. Gasps. Stunned silence around the room.
I had to Google what this was. I had no idea, but the concept seems pretty cool. So go ahead.
So it's an OG Skyrim mod, basically fleshed out into a full game with the power of Unreal Engine or whatever that gives such small teams the kind of impetus to be able to do full games to this kind of scale with this kind of aesthetic, I guess. And so it's by an Australian studio called Modern Storyteller, and you go on their website, and in their about section there's literally 3 blokes. So it's a really small team, and it, as I said, has grown out of the Skyrim modding community. And personally, I think I spent way too long when I was a teenager downloading Skyrim mods and New Vegas mods and mods for Fallout 3 and Oblivion and all of these different games. And I think when we're doing a more personalized game of the year, I don't think there's a more my kind of bullshit game that I could have picked. I said about Resident Evil just that it's a really tight story experience, but The Forgotten City is even more so, and even more so than Resident Evil. It's an experience that it's really difficult to talk about without spoiling a lot of it. I think a lot of the impact comes from going in blind, and I'm not one of these people. We were talking off camera just to lift the curtain a little bit before we started about the Spider-Man film, and Dorrani was saying that he cannot stand spoilers and would refuse any spoilers of anything. I'm not one of these people that's really big on spoilers. I don't really mind if I know that the Avengers beat Thanos at the end. I don't think that that's particularly a spoiler for me. But a lot of the impact from The Forgotten City comes from unraveling the mystery, and some of the key mechanics are a part of that, and that makes it a really stupid choice for me to try and talk about on a podcast, because I'm just going to sit here and say I can't really say very much about it. But it's a lot of people have played Skyrim or one of those Bethesda RPGs now, and you get that vibe of you kind of walk around like this with you holding your little weapon in front of you, rocking from side to side. You talk from people that are made out of plasticine for minutes at a time, and you just learn about their little lives, and you talk about different stuff, and you unravel a mystery, and you go to different places. You unlock different items and different ways of looking at the world, and you just unravel this little mystery. And if we're talking about experiences that we've enjoyed in 2021, I think that the Forgotten City is as good as any. That it doesn't outstay its welcome. We talked about pace. Just the pacing's really good. There's a lot of good voice acting within even if the graphics are a bit of an acquired taste. If you're into that sort of Skyrim-y vibe, then you'll be fine. But if you're looking for a bit more of an eyeball melting kind of showcase experience like Forza Horizon or something, then you're going to be like, what is this? What's this little nerd game? But the way that the different quests interlock with each other and how the narrative unfolds as you progress more and meet more people and discover more about the world, even though it's quite limited in scope, it's just a really good game. And I've said this twice now, but there's not really much more to say about that. It's just one of the best games. And if you fancy a narrative experience that's not too long, that is a real kind of gamer's game that you feel like you're supporting a true craft of gaming by getting involved with, it's a good one to choose.
Yeah, I think this goes out to you guys and everyone listening. When someone asks you why you like a game, all you have to really say is, I like it because I like it. You don't have to, the way people defend certain things sometimes, like the things that they like, never be embarrassed. I would say, like what you like, even if you're talking to Play-Doh people in the Forgotten City.
Nothing wrong with Play-Doh people.
Exactly. I can't believe Skyrim is finding ways to this day to live on through remakes and remasters and mods, turning into different games. I cannot believe this game is still so relevant. But
that's a very good point, actually. If you're considering spending your money on the billionth re-release of Skyrim, then this is a better place to spend it, because you've played through the Golden Core quest 7 times. You know that you're just gonna go and you're gonna marry the Huntress again, even though you say that you're not going to. You better spend playing something different that's got the same vibe, and it's much better. You think about one of the showpiece additions to that Skyrim edition was the Saints and Sinners quest, which brought some of the characters from the Shivering Isles DLC into the Skyrim universe. But it's just me talking about how much I like mods. I'm going to slag mods off now. It's just kind of unvoiced mod content. So it's just the characters. It's just the kind of character models from a different game, kind of ported in with no kind of like really sort of minimal voice lines and stuff like that. The Forgotten City is not like that. It's a fully voiced, fully acted, fully animated, all this sort of stuff adventure that is built out of the storyline of a Skyrim mod. It isn't as basic as you might expect. So even though I've said to try and go in as blind as possible, it is still one that you have a look at the trailer if you're on the fence. It is more intricate, more involved than you might expect from being built by so few people as well. And as I said, that is the power of Unreal Engine. You can, it's a much better place to spend your money, I think, than buying Skyrim for the 5th time.
Yeah, totally agree. I'll check it out when I'm in the mood for that sort of game. I want to actually ask a question. I wanted to ask it when you were speaking, Alex, about Deathloop. Is there such thing as the right game at the wrong time?
If there is, Arcane are expert at making it, but because they are the kings of making games, right? That are excellent, but don't find a massive audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one upside for Deathloop is it's going to come to Xbox, it's going to come to Game Pass, and I imagine it'll probably be huge when it does.
Yeah.
Whenever Sony's exclusivity deal runs out, because that is the sort of game where people will try it for free and then go, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. There's the right game at the right time, and you can have the right game at the wrong time. And so much about success is having the right game at the right time. And when you think about games that have changed the course of history, they're always excellent games. Your Grand Theft Auto 3s, your Skyrims, your Final Fantasy 7s, but they're also they also always come out at exactly the right time. And if they'd come out under slightly different circumstances, the world might have been completely different. A really good example of this is in that Xbox documentary that Microsoft's released. They tell the story about how Rockstar pitched them Grand Theft Auto 3 as an Xbox exclusive, and they passed on it. And
ouch.
Yeah, you say that, but the thing is, I saw that and I was like, but I bet if that had been an Xbox exclusive, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as successful as it was. So, and we might have lived in a world where the big PS2 game was State of Emergency, which is a good game, to be fair.
Just fine,
yeah. I say that because Deathloop, for me, as much as everyone was hyping it up, I just couldn't get into it, man. I can see why people enjoyed it. I really could see how people were enjoying it because, like, the style of it is incredible. The voiceovers are so good. But what you do in the game, I just didn't have the patience for it. There was too much investigating and looking around and reading. I was just like, nah, this isn't for me right now. I'm not in the mood. And
but that's the thing, though, right? Is Arcane make games that are unflinching. They're unflinchingly Arcane. Arcane goes for a mood and they go for it, which is exactly why I respected Dishonored, but wasn't really a Dishonored fan, because the energy the game had was not really something that I was massively into.
Yeah,
but Deathloop is, and now in your case, yeah, I don't know. It's
fun. Nah.
Anyway.
James, was there anything else you wanted to say, or were you finished with yours?
I'm pretty much finished. I think that the only other game that I would probably like to give a little shout out to is The Ascent. It's another indie game made by I think a core team of 12 people, that one. And I'm really into cyberpunk things and Schwarzenegger films as well, and that is those two things just
meshed,
put together
into one.
And it's a fun game. It's another reasonably limited in scope, tight experience that you can kind of burst through without having to spend 120 hours finding every little thing. So yeah, The Ascent is another really good game. But other than that, I think those are the things that I've enjoyed this year.
Amazing, thanks. Yes. So next on the list we have the man, the new kid on the block to the VG247 team.
Connor. It's me. Hey. I like the reverse order a lot. It feels like it lets you build up to your game of the year.
It's the standard. It's true.
So sorry about that ahead of time. Yeah, as the live service writer, I do have like live service games on my best games of the year. My list is gonna probably cause people to roll their eyes because I think a lot of the games I have didn't actually come out in 2021, such as the situation with these games that kind of were released and been sort of supported years and years and years after. So first thing I want to mention is Genshin Impact. I really, really didn't like the game when I first played it when it first came out. I kind of jumped in and bounced off the sort of narrative hooks it had and kind of saw it as a kind of good-looking sort of like gacha trap, sort of like a money sink. It absolutely is that. I should go on the record and say that I don't think it's a good idea to like spend hundreds of pounds on digital boyfriends or whatever. You probably shouldn't do that. But even if you don't do that, and especially with the new sort of like big amounts of content they've added recently, basically how it works is the story is split up where you go to these different, let's just say, continents. And they opened up a Japan-inspired one called Inazuma. And I feel like it's with this, the introduction of this new sort of like zone of the game, it really did sort of like catch a stride, at least with me. Genshin Impact, I don't really like it narratively, but as like a chill sort of like exploration game and a puzzle game, it's really kind of caught me this year. I've really started getting into it because of that. You'll like be wandering around these like islands, and you'll see these sort of like sometimes quite challenging puzzles just laying around, and it's quite cool to have a game that's technically totally free.
Oh no, it's not.
Technically, then
Cost
you
them
can
your
just
soul as well, but I like Genshin. It is good. It is good.
yeah,
I like Genshin.
you can kind of like stumble across something like some quite interesting sort of like challenges just like dotted around the map. But the main reason why it really caught me, aside from that, is because I got into sort of like the micromanaging of like building up a team. Genshin Impact is a party-based sort of like, I suppose, like an action RPG. And when I was really early into it, you get like your set of 3 characters, and they're kind of quite diverse in what they can do. Like one's a bow user with like fire abilities or whatever. And I kind of just went around focusing mostly on your player character. But when you really start diving into building up a certain party with like complementing abilities in mind, like synergies, I found myself really spending a lot of time trying to tweak and perfect that. So if that's a sort of game you're into and you don't mind the art style and occasionally cringy story moments,
I think the word you're looking for is anime.
yeah, if you don't mind being seen as a weeb by your friends and family.
So, question:
Go for
you
it.
said party stuff. You're kind of tag teaming though. Like you're not like it's not a party in the sense of like Final Fantasy where everyone is just
No.
waiting their turn.
No, so you
You're
can swap
tagging
out
in and out,
between-
right? Okay.
Yeah, so you have a party of 4 and you tag in and out during combat. And a big way in which sort of like the combat system works is that each character has an element attached to them, be it like air, water, fire,
Okay.
electricity. So if you combine 2 elements, they have a specific reaction. So a lot of what Genshin Impact kind of revolves around is setting up the proper reaction, seeing what enemies are weak to, and kind of building around that. I found it quite entertaining. I was kind of surprised this year when I was like, I'm spending dozens of hours playing Genshin Impact.
Yeah,
It kind of snuck up on me. But yeah,
why don't people like Genshin Impact? Because there's certain games that when they just the mention of their name has a negative reaction, and I feel like Genshin Impact is one of those
I
games.
don't think it is one of those
Yeah,
games.
I don't
think
think-
people
yeah.
love it.
You reckon?
I think it's very well loved.
Made a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think
Is it that part? Is it the microtransaction part of it that
People
gives
don't like that.
I think
Yeah.
some people will be pushed away by that element of it, and let's just be, it is fair, and it is,
Yeah.
you know, I've not personally spent money on Genshin Impact, but I know people who have dropped
couple G?
paychecks on Genshin Impact. So it is an element to the game. There's no hiding from that, and some people will also be put off from the aesthetic of it. But I think if you can look past those elements or kind of live with them, in some cases, it is genuinely quite a fun game to play.
It is.
Yeah, and you can dive in a little bit, like once a week, just explore the map, or you can spend a lot of time building up a team. There's a lot there for people.
Yeah, I played it recently. I was just quite surprised that it is free. Like, if you were to strip out the gacha stuff, right. I was very, very, very impressed. Just how great, how nicely stylized it all is. Looks really good, man. Looks really good. I agree.
Genshin, yeah, it reminds me a lot of one of those, because obviously Genshin is available on mobile, right? But it reminds me a lot of there are a lot of mobile games out there now that you're kind of surprised by how good they are. And then there's been this kind of like you mentioned, Dorrani, that there's been this backlash against mobile games for years and years now, that they're not proper games or whatever. But once you kind of have a bash and download them on your phone and have a bit of a go, you're kind of surprised by the quality. And I think that Genshin Impact is definitely one of those. And with that, we have to remember that it is a massive rip-off of Breath of the Wild. So the skeleton that it's built around does have that kind of base level.
It isn't. It's a massive rip-off in some ways. In other ways, it's not. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw a picture of
but the pieces that we're praising.
Yeah.
The pieces that we're praising are the exploration, which is ripped from Breath of the Wild, which is the climbing and the stamina bar as you climb up stuff, and the interaction between elements, which is also ripped from Breath of the Wild, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. I saw a picture. It was like, Breath of the Wild's influence as a whole, and it had like the new Sonic that's coming out. It's just like a little picture that I saw, like Sonic.
Yeah.
It had
I
Master Chief.
saw
Halo.
that. I saw that, but also it was like so we're saying that Breath of the Wild invented a character standing on a cliff overlooking
Yeah.
a vista.
I'll put the image
Yeah,
up.
it's
happening in
getting
films
it's getting to the point of
games.
like Souls, like anything with a stamina bar is a Souls.
Yeah,
It's like, okay,
yeah.
calm
Yeah,
down.
exactly.
No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
Come on.
Blanket term
It's-
now.
Breath of the Wild is one of them. Is going to be one of the most influential games of the last decade. Absolutely. When all is said and done. However, people do tend to get a bit overexcited,
Yeah,
to say the least. Which is extremely diplomatically.
yeah.
Anyway.
Big up Zelda though. So that was Genshin Impact. What's next on your runners up list, Connor?
Next is another live service game. It's Legends of Runeterra. That's Riot's digital
yeah.
like online card game.
Yeah.
Again, another game where I jumped in initially and was like, "This is naff. I'll just play Magic the Gathering or like anything else if I want a card game like this, or Hearthstone, right?"
Yeah.
And this is thanks to kind of how much they add to it and how much like free stuff they give you. That game's really evolved quite a bit. Like even recently, in the past 2 days, they've added a bunch of new champions and decks to it, which has kind of solidified it, at least in my mind, as a really, really like high contender, as probably one of the best online card games you can play right now.
Yeah.
So the way it works is it's for those who don't know, it's like a League of Legends themed card game. You can buy like cards and like cosmetics and stuff, but for the most part, you just play and you get like daily quests. It is a live service game. There is now also like battle passes and stuff that you can work through. But
The least surprising thing you said
for
today,
sure.
there's also battle passes.
It just heaps and heaps free stuff onto you. For example, these battle passes I'm talking about, while there are seasonal ones in the game that aren't seasonal, there are just like factional, so like progression bars that you don't need to pay for. It's like totally free, so you can kind of pick your favorite sort of like champion from League of Legends or just like a play style that suits you, and you can totally focus on that. And within like not much time at all, you will build up a deck for free. Invest a bit of time into it, and it really does like. It's so freeing to be able to jump into sort of like a live service game like this, and just have it totally open to you. You just got to like complete some daily quests, and then you're given like a weekly chest, and it's like, oh, you can do, you can unlock a bunch of new character like legendary cards and really jump into it. And over the few, they've added a lot of like new game modes and sort of like really enjoyable kind of out there sort of like spin-offs of the typical sort of like standard card game. Like they've added like a roguelike style campaign now in a recent update alongside Arcane, which is their big Netflix show, which I didn't know about until I jumped into it. And I was like, oh, this is like a full-on sort of like fun little side mode I can jump into and be rewarded for, and it's totally free. So yeah, there's not much to say about that really. It's just really good. It's kind of just like grown into something that's quite enjoyable, and that you can like drop an hour into every now and again, and not feel like you're super far behind all these other players with all the cards.
Yeah, I will say, Legends of Runeterra, right, as a whole, they do live service games really well. They give you, like you said, a lot of free stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they give you a ton of free stuff. It's a shame that Hearthstone ran itself into the ground. And that was all I'll say about that. Yeah, no, I agree. And big up you for coming with the live service games. This is not a thing that people will admit that they like, but
it is my job
when they're done right.
to be
when they're done right.
the liker and player of hated games. That is my sad. So, that is my job description.
Genshin Impact and Legends of Runeterra. What's next?
I've got one more runners-up game, and then I've got my game of the year. So my last runners-up game was really close to being my game of the year, just due to sort of like personal reasons for it, and that's Guilty Gear Strive. And the big reason for that is because for those who don't know contextually, a lot of the big fighting games have kind of been have a big problem, which is a bad netcode in it. So like if you play Street Fighter 5 right now, if you play it online, or if you watch any of like the Capcom Pro Tour like matches, especially in regions that aren't NA or EU, you see really, really horrible online matches. And that's the same for like Tekken, Smash Bros. Ultimate is the same issue, and a bunch of these really, really, really big games.
Smash Bros. Is a party game for children, so
that is also true. That is
true. Pause. Everyone, stop. Now,
no, I'm well.
You done that on purpose. You done that on purpose. He knows. He knows he's done that on purpose. Quick, easy reaction, and well done. You got me. Well done. You got me.
Whenever I write about Smash Bros. On the website, I always put it into the party game category rather than the fighting game.
I mean, it's not a real fighting game. Come on.
It is. No, you know, it is a fighting game, and it is a very good party game at the same time.
I can't wait for the EVO Grand Finals of Nickelodeon. Whatever it's called.
No, that's
it'll be the same players, same audience.
Yeah, sorry, God.
Wow. No, you're totally right. But yeah, so Guilty Gear Strive comes out. It's part of a sort of niche sort of series that people aren't really hugely into, but it comes out and it focuses on having this sort of like netcode improvement sort of inbuilt into the game, alongside the game just being a pretty decent, quite enjoyable, easy to get into sort of like anime fighter. Again, big weeb card here on my games of the year. But it's one of my high contenders for me, because being able to play these games has been quite difficult over COVID. Before COVID, you would like travel out to locals. Like I would go to small events in the south of England, or I would, get really into this sort of thing, or just be in or watch like local tournaments online. But that's kind of died off during COVID because it's not been safe to do so, or it's been impossible to travel. But with Guilty Gear Strive, it's kind of enabled that to happen to a degree over online. And it's brought a lot of new people in, and it's just been really refreshing to see sort of like a super enjoyable fighting game be playable and have this big sort of AAA presentation on top of it. It was so enjoyable that once we had a few months where we could travel, I did travel to Ireland for a tournament where I got rinsed by the Irish.
Was it streamed? Was it like a streamed event?
I didn't. It was streamed. I didn't play on stream, but you can see me on stream. There is nothing in gaming quite like spending hundreds of pounds to travel and get rinsed.
I get clapped.
There's nothing quite like it.
That's right,
it's the biggest high that you could possibly get. Is just like save up money for months and then just like lose it in like half an hour to an hour.
But did you enjoy yourself?
Oh, it was great. It's like that's sort of it's really refreshing to have 2 years of this not happening, and then you go to an event and then you see all these people who've also been waiting like 2 years pop up and have a fun time. Also, on Alex's point, the Smash players did play Smash and nothing else. And outside the hotel, a bunch of parents did pull up in their cars.
How did the Smash room smell?
They had their own corner.
In my experience at tournaments, there's the big tournaments in Birmingham that happen every year,
right?
And in one year they gave Smash its own floor, and it was like, as you can. I'm sorry to people who play Smash Bros. By the way, because I'm sure this isn't. I don't want to tie you all with the same brush, but as you walked up the staircase, when you got to the Smash floor, it just hit you. You know what it's like? It's like when you're at a gig and you go out to the toilet and it's all fresh air, and then you walk into the gig. You walk back into where the gig is, and the wave of BO just hits you. That's what the Smash room was like.
Smash thankfully had its own corner, and it was quite a big hotel lobby, so you couldn't quite tell. I will not comment on the smell.
I'm going to say that most gaming conventions smell musty. It's just mustiness. And I'm a Smash player, but don't lump me in with those guys. Please, don't lump me in with those guys.
Gonna get you some deodorant for Christmas.
I'm well dressed. I smell fucking great. So you can't lump me in with those guys.
There is a
No way.
difference. There is a tangible difference between like convention smell and like smash stank.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
I don't know. I don't go to them, so
I just think of the stories of like, what was the Smash tournament where they got thrown out of the hotel for like throwing actual human shit at each other?
What?
Like, that is a real story. I
No
gotta Google
way.
it. I gotta Google
Oh,
it.
there's some stories from the Smash community that are horrendous.
Well, there's that famous Kotaku article where they interviewed like a pro Smash player. He's like, I just wish people would like smell better, and then it caused the whole drama.
I feel like that's an honest ask. I feel like that is an
Actually,
honest ask.
I want
Please
to
tell.
have a. It's my bad. I need to correct this because people will be mad. It
Go on.
wasn't the Smash community. That was Pokemon community. The shit throwing incident. It was.
God.
Yeah, Pokemon team had a poo fight in a hotel from Destructoid.com.
1 second.
And
Have these two frozen?
Pokemon players were throwing their own shit around. Fun. Someone called PokeChamp21 provided an eyewitness account saying, quote, I awoke to the sound of banging coming down the hall from where the team was staying in. It seems that at some point after they turned up when we went to Weatherspoons, the Spaniards had decided to have a poo fight in the corridor, and this had upset the staff and several guests, and the hotel called the police and had them leave.
Jesus.
So there you go.
Christ.
But it was Pokemon, not Smash. I'm sorry, Smash.
There you go. There you go.
So yeah, Guilty Gear Strive is my runners up.
Yeah, I do want to say for Guilty Gear, there's certain games that come along that really raise the bar for games. Guilty Gear and the other game I can think of this is Valorant, who came in and made netcode the main priority, and a lot of games are gonna follow suit. Like the rollback stuff is already coming into so many fighting
100%.
games. All of the latency issues with FPSs that are coming out and network stuff is because of Valorant, because they said no, like we're so online now, and this is how we play. It needs to be a nice experience, especially if you want to be competitive online as well. So big up those games that elevate games as a whole.
Well, it certainly like changed Arc System Works, who's a developer of Guilty Gear. It changed their perspective on developing games now. Guilty Gear had its audience, but it was certainly one of the more niche series, and it kind of really blew up thanks to it being really accessible and playable during COVID. So it's absolutely changed their practices for sure. Yeah.
And then
Game of the Year goes to Disco Elysium: The Final Cut for me. It's hard to like put into words how it is my job to put into words how great Disco Elysium: Final Cut is. It seems at its surface to be quite a sort of like cool looking, sort of interesting, sort of like detective. You know, you go into a town and you need to find who killed someone. But when you actually jump into the game, it's just got so much sort of like character and so much quality and just like the writing. It is a very text heavy game, warning. But the reason why I would recommend it as Game of the Year this year is the Final Cut added a lot of voice acting to the vast majority of the game. So whereas before people like me would be smiling ear to ear because we love reading. Oh, I love reading in games. Whereas it might have put people off for sure.
It put me off. I'm just gonna throw that out.
Yeah, no, it's totally reasonable. It's a lot of it's quite heavy to get through. But with the voice acting now, it adds not only it makes it more accessible to people who don't really like sitting down and reading a bunch. It also the voice actor who did a lot of the internal monologue, which is what a lot of the or like narration over the game, which is a lot of what the text actually ends up being, is excellent. Does a great job, and it's his first voice acting credit. So great job to him. Yeah, the game's narratively excellent. It goes to a lot of really interesting places. You play kind of a guy at the end of his rope, and it's a lot about sort of setting out who you want to be, what sort of detective you want to be, as you go about tracking down the culprit of a murder. And along the way, you can do all sorts of wacky and sort of darkly funny things with your character. You can become a communist. You can become HoboCop. You could become a liberal, which is possibly the worst thing you could become. Well, not really, not to spoil things, options you have. But yeah, it's a very funny sort of like RPG, and if you're okay with some heavy topics it touches on, if you're okay with like going through that sort of thing, it's absolutely worth jumping into.
What do you mean heavy topics?
So it touches on things like alcoholism, drug use,
Okay.
and quite
It's serious stuff.
emotionally distressing stuff at sometimes. But yeah, if you're okay with that sort of content in the game and you're looking for a sort of game that really can surprise you with where it goes, it's up there with one of my favorite games, not just like this year, but in recent memory. It's fantastic. It's really, really, really good.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's amazing. I finished it literally last night, and I was thinking to myself, wow, I wish this could be my game of the year. This game from 2019, I wish this could be my... And then Connor comes in here. It's like, oh, there you go.
Well, we're one team, so this is our games of the year. What did you think of it? Like, expand a bit more.
It's a fantastic game, and as we spoke about, I think the games industry as a whole has a little bit of an obsession with seeming adult in the adult themes, and we're not making toys for children. We're making proper artistic things for adults that are mature. Mature, that is the word that people like to use a lot. It's kind of mature themes, and it's a little bit of a tangent, but I was thinking about it's relevant at the moment that The Matrix is coming back in a really big way. And one of the things that I really enjoy about The Matrix is that it manages to be a dark, adult, mature dystopia without falling back on a lot of the tropes that people go to in that.
Well, it's all those things, but also The Matrix is quite fun.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly, that's another brilliant point to bring into this with all the Kung Fu stuff. The Matrix is very fun. Disco Elysium is very fun, but at the same time it discusses really difficult, really weighty, very complex topics, like as Connor alluded to, different political ideologies on all sides of the spectrum, distressing things like addiction, sexual violence, a lot of different things that are very difficult. It approaches with a very kind of considered, and that's the word that I think I'd use, kind of considered, a very considered and thoughtful perspective that tries to explore these different things, these different difficulties, these different topics without glorifying and without being flippant, but at the same time manages to put it into a package that is enjoyable to play, is enjoyable to role play in, and makes you kind of examine these different ideologies, these different situations in a very novel way. And it's a brilliant game because of it.
It's a sort of game you really can and should play multiple times. There's been discussions about, well, how often do people really actually replay games? Well, beat them, let alone replay them. And that number is kind of smaller than you may assume. But this is a sort of game where, like, I've played it start to end like 4 times, I think.
How long is it?
I think it's about... It's a decent... It's like...
Yeah.
It's not short. It's like...
It's not super short. I think it might be like 10 hours.
It's like 20 hours on your first
10,
time,
20.
I think, probably.
Yeah.
But like, each time you go through it, if you go down like a totally different sort of path for your character, it really does unlock and surprise you. It's like little like gift wrap presents, each sort of like different route you take. Like the first time I went, I played like a straight, let's play a cop who is like a detective, and he's doing all the right things, and he's an upstanding person, and he doesn't drink on the job, and he's trying to solve the murder, and you get a good experience doing that, and it's fantastic. And then the second time from like, let's punch a kid in the face, let's let's sleep on the bench, let's do a bunch of like out there stuff, and obviously it retreads a lot of the same major key story threads, but each avenue you can go down with your own character is its own rewarding, humorous, like sort of like self-reflecting, like experience in and of itself. It's really, really fantastic.
No, that's great. I feel like this is one of those games where the people, I haven't heard a bad thing about this game. Like it comes up so frequently, and the only thing, as I said, was the walls of text. I can't do it. My brain just won't allow me to read that much. But everything that people have said is always good about this. And when they said it's what's the name of the edition?
Final Cut.
Final Cut. When they added the voice acting, I definitely might pick it up. If I don't enjoy it, then I don't. But I definitely want to give it a chance because of the way how highly regarded it is.
Yeah,
So,
I think the reason I put it at my number one spot this year is because the Final Cut came out, and it makes it so
it transforms the game.
It transforms the game, and anyone that massive barrier's gone. There's really no excuse to give it a go.
Yeah. Did you play that as well, Alex and Sherif?
I played it in 2019. I played a bit of the Final Cut, enough to know that it is a transformative thing. I'd love to find the time to play some more of it. I'd like to play it on Switch. Actually, that would be nice.
Yeah. Well, on Switch with the text, maybe on the new OLED. I don't know, on the OG Switch. You think the text would work well there? Does the text come up quite big on the screen? Is it like take up the whole screen when it comes up?
I haven't actually seen that version myself.
Also, it's voice acted though, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts on Disco Elysium? I think that's a great pick, man.
It's a great game.
I think that's a great pick. Great pick. Right, and then we have the man himself, Sherif.
Hey.
Tell us what's up.
So I'm gonna mention two games. These are not my runner-ups. Just I want to mention them because I like them. The first one is The Ascent. Like James, I really like that game. It does so much with so little, and that applies to like the development team kind of punching above their weight in so many ways, and production value, and design, and art, especially, and world building. Like so much in this game. If you had not known that it was made by a small team and a bunch of contractors, you'd be like, "Oh, this is like a mid-size team." It punches above its weights in a bunch of other areas. Like it's trying to do so many things. It's not always successful. Like there are RPG mechanics, there are kind of character building with stats and stuff that's not always fleshed out and not always successful. They just put out a patch that changes a bunch of the side missions which did not have voice acting. They teamed up with like a company that provides one of those customizable, scalable voice modulation things where one actor could read a line and then you can turn that into 6 different actors. Whatever. Point is, they have even added more production value to that game since it's been released. And just the moment to moment in that game, the action, the spectacle when you have everything on and you see the destruction and the clutter in the world, it's just so dense with detail and with love for cyberpunk and sci-fi. There's just it didn't make the list this year for me, but it's just so good. Like if you can get it, I don't know if it's on Game Pass or not, but it's such a great time. The other one I will mention is Chorus, which just came out. We were talking about this, Dorrani and I, recently. My impressions are on the side. I wish that game had come out earlier in the year or next year, just so that it can get more exposure and get more kind of people talking about it. It's a simple space shooter game in a way that we don't get anymore. It is also really heavy on the action, incredibly accessible, a lot of powers that make you feel good to be like in the pilot seat. It's not a lot of content. It's not a lot of like customizable ships and customizable weapons and loot and all that stuff that you expect from games these days. It's just a very simple, contained story about someone running from their past as like a kind of an executioner for a cult. But it's just, if you just put all that on mute and just go in for the action, the game is constantly surprising. It is constantly giving you powers. It is throwing these amazing scenarios at you. The boss fights are awesome. The situations that you find yourself into, like going, fighting big ships and smaller ships and like diving in like kind of like a trench run situation, trying to blow up like cores and shield whatever and then backing out. It's really good. Like if you sleeping on that thing, if you think, oh, it looks like a space shooter, Just give it a go. It's really, really surprising. These are my two kind of did not make the list. The number 3, or I guess the first runner-up, is Back for Blood, the Left 4 Dead. Everyone. I just love that game. That game. I love Left 4 Dead. I am not. I don't think of Left 4 Dead as highly as people think of it. I've played it quite recently, in fact, in the process of reviewing Back 4 Blood. It does not hold up. Like, I'm sorry, it does not hold up. The things that it did at the time were fascinating and awesome because it was new and it was interesting. Now, after years of video games in general, just advancing in every way imaginable, you go to that thing now and it's like, oh, this is neat, this is cute, and then you can't play it for any length of time, or at least I can't. Back 4 Blood, I think, to me, is the perfect reinvention of that without falling into the trap of modernizing games in the sense that it's not a live service game. It's not a thing that you have to log in every day to clear your dailies, and you have your battle passes and your XP things to track and all that, your loot and your seasonal events and all the FOMO stuff that's in every co-op game. It's a co-op game you play because it's fun, because it has memorable encounters, because it's fun. The combat is engaging moment to moment. You have things to tell everybody. Like I had a group chat going from the beta where people are just sharing deck ideas, and it's like, oh, I did this yesterday with a group of randoms, and we should try this today. Like, it brought me back to a time of Left 4 Dead, where people would just log in to play and be with each other and not caring about, have you done your dailies? Have you done your weeklies? Or you only have like 5 hours to get the whatever. None of that shit matters. You go in, you play. And I think for a game in 2021 to A, feel good, and B, recreate that feeling for me, like the classic co-op, without having all this bolted on shit that's often unnecessary, I think to me is a triumph. And the icing on the cake is that the game is just super fun to play. It has problems that they have since fixed a lot of them as far as balance. The game can just be wildly inconsistent in terms of like difficulty. There are some difficulty spikes that you're like, how am I can't deal with that. But if you don't run to these often, or if you start playing now that a bunch of these have been kind of smoothed out, it is such a great co-op experience that is like really straddling the line between classic and modern without really falling into the trap of like trying to either be too authentic like Left 4 Dead or too modernized to appeal to everyone of like Battle Pass and all that stuff.
It's got a big patch coming out as well
today.
Oh, is it today?
It
smooths out a lot of stuff. The patch list is extensive. I agree with you there, Sherif, man. I know a lot of people wouldn't put that in their list, but for the co-op shooters, we've had Aliens Fireteam Elite as well. That didn't really capture it as well. I think Back 4 Blood is the happy medium for it all. It's not like convoluted. It's quite simple to understand. The card system is great. The difficulty thing that you mentioned needs to be adjusted, because like the easiest mode is a walk in the park, and then you bump it up 1 notch and you have to go into like military mode. You have to be sneaking around, you have to be conserving ammo, conserving health. But great game, man. Honestly, great game. That is you said that a similar thing to what Alex said with bringing friends together. I think that's what's up, man. That's cool.
Yeah, I generally speaking like games that put you in a situation where you have to do so much with so little, like to improvise. This is why I like BR games, the actual BR games, not the Warzone kind of breed of them. Of like, here's a terrible situation, you're at a disadvantage. The fun to me is figuring out how to come out of that, because when you do, it feels better than anything. Like the immersion gameplay situations that happens, and Back 4 Blood is just a lot of that. Like, it's just a lot of that. Like, I talked about like I think I called it like spinning too many plates, or not too many, spinning a lot of plates, where it's like, oh, am I going to get the weapon that I want? I'm going to get the attachment that I want. What's the card situation? Should I go in like spec for a specific class? Should I go in as the point meant? Like, so many things happening that like you can't not have these moments, and I just love that about it. Like, it's so really well done, especially in that area.
Yeah. Anyone else got anything to say about Back 4 Blood?
I think Sherif has pretty much covered my thoughts on it there. I want to go back to that, but Halo has stolen my heart. But I will find time eventually.
Rightly so. Continuing on.
Keeping on with the theme of a little unusual, Neo 2 That game came out on PC in February. James is not happy.
Thumbs
I know.
down.
I feel his pain. I feel your pain, James. But I gotta say, man, I played that game when it came out on PS4 last year. But the thing with me is that for that game and Neo 1, I played them with the mentality of like, this is a Souls-like. Everything is well crafted, is perfect. The challenge is not going to be just right, and that game is just not that. But like stubbornly, I finished Neo 1 as a Souls-like, and I played, I don't know, like 25 to 30% of Neo 2 as that. I just couldn't do it. I was like, this is not what is happening here. This is what are you trying to do? Like, this is not, doesn't have the refinement of Souls. It doesn't have the balance of Souls. This is not a Souls-like. And then whatever happened between that time and February when the PC version came out, I was like, okay, let's fresh face, fresh try. Just let's give it another honest thing. And I just started playing it like a normal RPG where you're enchanting your weapons. You're basically getting every advantage you get. And it completely changed my outlook on that game to the point that I finished it and finished the DLC in the span of like 4 weeks. I was like, this is incredible. I've always loved the combat in Neo, and I think James will agree that the combat in Neo is second to none. But I was playing it cautiously. I was playing it, there are no shields in that game, but from behind a shield as a sort of like a metaphor, where it's like, oh, this should be tuned better. This should be, whereas my second time around with Neo 2 was like YOLO. Just what do you have? Okay, do a spell that reveals enemies on the minimap. Do another spell that gives you like a stamina boost. Do another spell, and then you go and like mix and match weapons, switch stances, like go, and don't expect it to be precise in the same way that Souls is. And it's just so good when you do that. So yeah, Neo 2, man, just what a great time I had with that game.
Yeah. Do you know what? That was passionate, man.
Yeah,
that was passionate, Sherif. I'm not gonna lie. That was very, very passionate. I played Neo 1, and I think I treated it like a Souls thing, so I didn't click with it initially. I want to know, James, why didn't you like it?
I don't actually not like it. It is.
Oh, is it a meme? Is it a running joke?
It's a bit of a meme. It's. I think the main thing that I remember from Neo 2 is just how gleefully vindictive it is.
Yes. In a way that Souls isn't.
Yeah. That's the thing, yeah.
In a way that's there's exactly. In Souls games, there's kind of cheeky moments where it's like, haha, you didn't see the skeleton behind the thing.
Yeah.
But this isn't a spoiler. This might be it's not a spoiler. There is a moment towards the end of the game where it's like, screw you, do 2 bosses at once.
Wow, spoiler.
It's like, cool, thank you. I guess
I am looking forward to their dumb Final Fantasy game in March,
God,
which I think is probably going to be quite a lot of lineage from Neo. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out.
Yeah, and it'll be funny to. There's a lot of really cool things in Neo that are not in other sort of Souls-like games or whatever. There's a big emphasis on loot that's really fun. I really like loot finding games, and there's a lot of interesting builds and just stuff you can mess about with, different little outfits that you can wear when you're going through stuff. And it, as Sherif says, it's much more a kind of learn the levels and then seat of your pants, fly through them, almost like a puzzle game kind of thing that you just kind of burning through in as nerve-shreddingly Twitch intensive way as possible. And yeah, it's a really good game and is evil to the bone.
Yes, it's vindictive for sure. I think another thing is people often talk about meaty games. And to me, anytime I see that, I expect Assassin's Creed 60 hours of just map of quests and stuff. Neo is a meaty game on the mechanical system level. Like if you were to put an hour count, like you could go through that game in like 20 hours. It's not a big deal. But the systems and the mechanics, like every weapon is effectively its own class, like in a Monster Hunter sense. The depth of gameplay and the depth of loot that comes, that doesn't even start until the end game almost. Like the end game in Neo 2 is almost the start of a new game, which I know is a very cliche thing to say. But it's such, like the things that open up to, there are systems that the game does not introduce or explain until you have beaten the final boss. Like try to imagine that in like an Assassin's Creed. And it's not like a fluffy thing. It's like, no, it's like, this is a new mechanic that the majority of people will not even see until they finish the game. And it's like, what's happening here? So like that game, if you're like me, like mechanically dense, systems heavy games, oh my god, like Neo, you can play it in co-op if you just want to experience like the combat and be like a little bit safer. Neo 2, just what a great time.
Yeah. You was going to say something, Alex. I think I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say, I enjoyed Neo, and I'm looking forward to that Final Fantasy game. That's basically it.
Yeah.
I never beat Neo 2, but this has made me want to jump back into it.
Yeah. When you hear someone speak about it so passionately, yeah. Now, well said, man. And wait, hold on. Is this your game of the year now?
No, my game of the year is still coming up. I'm rubbing
No.
hands.
You rub it. No, but you've done 2 runners up, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Neo and
it's
Back
game
to
of the year now.
Yeah. Sorry. Go for it.
You ready?
I'm just writing down notes.
It's Housemarque's Returnal on their PlayStation 5.
Ooh.
Look, man, there's a thing, there's like kind of like a running joke with me, and that I don't like games. It's like a thing that my friends would have, which is they always tell me you only like the From Software Souls games. And if you like zoom out and like kind of analyze where that came from, they're not wrong, because the state that those games put me in, no other game does. Like every other game I've played, it's like, it's like trying to emphasize with like someone else's predicament, and you're like, I'm trying, man. Like I'm trying genuinely, but I'm not really. You're trying to be a good person, but you're not really emphasizing with the situation. This is if you are in a situation and you're telling that story. Like that's to me is the Souls game. They haunt my weeks, whatever. I think about them every waking moment when I'm playing them. I go online and see what people are saying. What's the lore situation? What's this? Is this thing, did I miss? What's happening here? I cannot, like, they consume me. And for any other game from any other studio to do that, like that to me is already like I could just say that and someone would know me. Like, yeah, I completely understand what you're talking from, what you come from. And Returnal is that for me. And it's unusual, because it's a roguelike, and I'm not generally a fan of roguelikes, because I don't like the time investment. I hate it when things kind of end because of bad RNG or just bad luck, and you're like back where you started. So that's already a thing that if you were making that list, I'd be like, no, man, I'm sorry. It's also an arcade game that is not meant to stick with you, or like coming from an arcade studio with like an arcade feel. Housemarque, that's not really like, those games are fun, they're engaging mechanically, but I didn't, when I finished Nex Machina, I wasn't thinking about like the deep lore of Nex Machina. I was like, oh, this is a pretty good game. Same thing with like older other games. I was like, Resogun, again, great games, but don't stick with you in that way. Like a big, quote unquote, big game would. Somehow, they have infused their arcade knowledge and the way they've been making arcade, or arcade style games for that long, which is really precise control, really tight movement, and really readable enemies. They have made that transition into 3D, which is like just like try to imagine like that challenge of creating that. And like in a top-down perspective, it's like, oh yeah, I can see the bullets, I can dodge through this barrage, I can do this. This is a third-person game. How can you do that when you have that many enemies, that many areas with like different weather effects and different shit going on, and somehow it's still for the most part readable and it feels good to play at 60 FPS on that controller? And then they were like, okay, not enough. Let's have a mechanic where the roguelike mechanic is essentially the structure of the game, where it's like you're on this planet and you're in this constant groundhog situation where the loop is starting, and have the character recognize that and build that into the narrative. And it's just like what are you doing? Like, this is this is your first quote unquote big game, and you're already doing all this cool shit, and then you get to the bosses and they are events in the same way that they are in like the Souls games. Exceptional music, exceptional design, like every one of them. Again, I was literally like during the time I was playing it, I would come into work every day and just have the music on, like the boss of the music, especially the last 2 bosses. I mean, like it's like it's beyond just a game that I'm having fun with in the moment. And yeah, of course, it has problems, obviously, but it's just it nails so much of what it's trying to do so well that you just even I, someone who usually averse to roguelikes, like I can't stop playing this, even if I wish it was not a roguelike. I just can't stop playing it. It's just hitting everything so right, so well that you're like, I can't. Like, I'm just gonna get over myself, just bite the bullet, and just finish it. And I did 33 runs, if you're interested,
Nice.
to see it. And I got the. I was one away from getting the real ending or whatever. You have to select the 9, whatever, 7 thingies. I can't remember, but I was one down because I failed my rest, and I was like, fuck this. But also still my game of the year.
Yeah, no, that is an incredible game of the year, man. I did have it in mind, so I'm just gonna piggyback off you and say that the sound, most notably, it's not a spoiler. It kind of is. The organ,
yeah, dude,
boss was something that I've never like had to like pause for like a boss room to take it in. Yeah. Like, oh, can I say it? Is this like really spoilery if I say it?
Kind of, because it's the
penultimate. Listen. That section, what I'm going to say, that section is incredible. That section is incredible.
Yeah.
Returnal was in a bit of a weird situation on release, don't you think? Because it's a AAA roguelike, and not a lot of people understand roguelikes. When they were spending £60 for a game where £70 where you play and you die and you go back to the start. Remember, not everyone is clued up to games like how we are. Back again to the people who only buy 1 or 3 games a year. If Returnal was one of them, I wouldn't blame them if they were like, "Holy shit, what is going on here? I might return this." No pun intended. No pun intended. But great game.
I think they made like the price was maybe a little steep. Like Sony needs to honestly get off their high horse on like the $70 stuff. Like not every game has to be 70, and that's fine. That's cool. I think the game is, I hate to do the hour versus money thing because it's just such bullshit.
Yeah.
But yes, $70 you pay for The Last of Us 2, you should not pay that money for Returnal. Like, I think Returnal should have been cheaper out of the gate, and especially since they only just added the mid-run saves, which was not a thing.
Yeah.
A casual, like, PS5 owner is going to rub them the wrong way, and it's going to ruin their impression of an otherwise just stellar game. So, 70, like, already, come on. Like, just, like, bite the bullet and just say, no, production value is awesome, but the game just does not justify that price.
It broke my controller as well. Of course, it's got the adaptive trigger support, and it just broke my R2 trigger completely. I had to send it back and get a new one. Also, I would say any game with an active reload mechanic, I'm there for it. In the combat flow of things, incredible. James, do you have anything to add? Because I know you're waiting to say that you cleared it in like one go.
What is it? It took you 7, James?
I got to the last boss in 3 runs.
3? Oh wow!
He was playing on the preview build.
So I like ruined it for myself. So I ruined the story because it made it super lumpy. Because I almost completed it after 3 runs. But between Returnal and Control, I think the country of Finland has like that ethereal esoterica on lock. That it does a lot of, as we've talked about, it does a lot of really interesting things with atmosphere and ambience, and I'm a sucker for that retro sci-fi aesthetic as well. I like it when a CTR monitor goes boop, like in Alien. That
was the noise when you're like, there's a system noise.
And yeah, so it does a lot of really interesting things with atmosphere, and it blends that so incredibly with the really, really tactile gameplay, as you say, with the active reload, with the adaptive triggers. The best thing about that for me was it was a real demonstrative gameplay application of what that hardware can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
It's hard to overstate how big a part of the experience that is on the new console, and I think that is the probably one of the biggest and the best generation kind of leaps so far that I've seen with the console, the PS5 console in general. It's a great game. As I say, I ruined it for myself by nearly completing, because obviously when I'm doing guides or whatever, I try and play everything in absolutely the cheapest way possible.
Yeah.
So with the crossbow, the crossbow that puts down
yes,
that shoot things between, that's super overpowered. So if you kind of stuff yourself in the corner of a room and use that, you can get through pretty much.
To be completely fair, that's still a good weapon. Like preview or not, like that's still a good weapon.
And I only didn't complete it after 3 runs because I choked. I did it wrong, and if I would have done it.
Okay, James. All right.
I think it took me like 20, so that's what ruined it for me. That I had like 17 runs with no story in because I'd done it all the way up to the end.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. That's another good point about what you said, Dorrani, that it requires a bit of a leap of faith in terms of the structure, that you could go into it and kind of snooker yourself and think, this game's rubbish. Why has nothing happened for 17 runs? And it's still a brilliant game, and the ambience and the aesthetic are incredible and definitely worth playing just for that, in my opinion. And it's a really interesting gameplay innovation too. So
it's a showcase. The same thing you said that Forza is for Xbox. Returnal.
Yeah.
When you're in a boss fight, the colors are insane. As you said, they use their previous games and they translate them so well into this. It's incredible. Big up Housemarque, man. Jesus, great game.
Way, the first must-have PS5 game.
Yeah. I honestly, sure. I'm sure like Ratchet is great. It looks great, but like,
but Tom's not here, so who cares? I'm only joking. Ratchet's good,
but like for Ratchet's a bit of a family game, which is nothing wrong with that. But like if you're like you play video games as much as we do, you want like a meaty, like I want to sink my teeth into this and get good.
Yeah.
Returnal, like just on this new PS5. Whew.
Yeah. Sometimes though, Ratchet and Clank is what I need. I'm going to be the anti-hero here and say Ratchet and Clank is. It was good to just sit down and play something, just kick back. Not every day do I want to have to learn 500 systems, and that's the parallel, the fucking juxtaposition, whatever word to use there. You lot are the writers, not me. Not every day do I want to learn all these systems. And once again, Ratchet on a 4K screen looks insane. Oh my God, I could not believe some of when you like zoom in to like the fur, and I was like, oh my God. And one other thing, James, what you said, the DualSense controller in Returnal, you can feel the rain, bro. You can feel the rain in the controller. I feel like that is not to be underestimated.
No, you can feel, and you can feel the different surfaces that you walk onto, for like the sand and the second zone. And if you have like a pair of headphones, that game does 3D audio exceptionally well, to the point that you would sometimes hear the rain hitting the outside of your helmet, which is an effect I have never heard in any video game, and I don't even know how they arrived at it.
It's a very, very good one for the official PS5 headset, even though I sort of hate that headset because I think it feels
the good news is that
the
3D
performance of
it
is really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I don't know. It's optimized, right? Or whatever. All I know is I played it with that headset and it was extremely impressive. Yeah,
it's a bit of a cliche thing to say, but that like the way it works with the controller, like we've mentioned, being able to feel like the rain and stuff, and the headset, really, it's such a cliche. It made me feel like, okay, this is a real next gen, sort of game like experience, real.
And that's PlayStation's advantage, right? Going into like this whole next gen, current gen, that's going to be their advantage with their first party titles, is that they have a whole other thing in the DualSense controller that
I think it's funny because that's the one thing, right, where even in an interview, Phil Spencer was like, yeah, we've looked at that controller and we realise we might be missing a trick, and I wouldn't be surprised if Xbox do some sort of controller down the line. Yeah. With that said, my problem with the DualSense is the battery life is just a piss take, and I'd actually almost 9 times out of 10, unless they're used extremely well, I'd rather not have those features and have a controller that lasts for 10 hours. than have those features and have a controller that conks out after 2.5 hours.
Mhm.
But yeah.
You saying that? When I was playing Ratchet and Clank, I had to turn off the adaptive triggers. I had to turn them off at some point because it was
I
just
can't
doing
think
too
what
much.
game it was. It was Deathloop, where I was playing Deathloop, and I was just like, these are doing nothing for me in this game.
Yeah.
Like,
Bit too
but
much.
anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well said, Sherif, man. I totally agree.
Right, Dorrani,
It's me now.
Yeah.
I'm up.
Get to roast your answers.
Yeah. I'm gonna be quick, to be honest. As I said, I piggybacked one of mine off Sharif's game of the year, and that was Returnal, and we've already discussed that. I want to do an honorable mention to a little indie game called Eastwood.
Yeah.
This game, you know, when you have no expectations for something really, and then you play it and you continue playing it, and it just keeps getting better. Like, it is so hyper stylized, it captures its style so well. Everything is so bright and vibrant. Like, oh my god! Like, even on the Switch as well. And I got a chance to play it on the OLED Switch, and it looks even better. You play as like this guy, and he takes a little girl underneath his wing, and it's like you can swap between the two, and they have different abilities and you solve puzzles, you go through, you kill enemies. It is like, what was the description of it? It's like a Zelda like, this is so reductive of what it actually is, but Zelda like, there was something else in there. It's just a fantastic game to play. It's got so much charm and personality, and it's got like this. I'm a fan of like really small details. There's like this like RGB split effect that's just on the whole game. It's like a colored tint, and it just makes it look incredible. The sounds, I said this in my video of why you need to play Eastwood. The sounds are so nostalgic. It's got all of that. It's got all of the like the Zelda sounds and Pokemon sounds, and they feel really nice. The music is 10 out of 10. The composer, you should go listen to the track list. It is oh man, the track it's got a lot of I don't know, power behind it. It's got a lot of feeling. It invokes a lot of feeling, the soundtrack. And it's accessible. I think anyone can play it. Don't go in expecting to be doing like some incredibly hard boss fights. But like I said, sometimes you need a game that you can just chill and vibe with, like get a few hours in before bed. And that is Eastwood for me. That explanation of it didn't do it justice, but just search it up, watch my video, and you'll see exactly what I mean. And you guys should play it as well. Yeah. You guys should play it, man. It's just so aesthetically pleasing to listen to, to watch and play. I'm gonna take a leaf out of Connor's book here. I'm actually gonna drop in a live service game. I'm not gonna say too much about it, but for ongoing, it has to be Apex Legends. Apex Legends by far is the best battle royale game there is out at the moment. Call it Warzone, sort of not missed the mark with Caldera, but they go through too much problems that just can't be overlooked. And a lot of their player base, the vocal player base, the streamers that represent the player base, sometimes have left. Fortnite, granted, their new season is great, but
I just want to say, because you're talking about how good Apex is and what a good battle royale it is, I've been enjoying the slightly desperate whiffing PUBG advertising now that says the original battle royale.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
It wasn't even. Wasn't like H1Z1 the original? It's not.
But it's just I remember interviewing those guys, the PUBG guys, at E3.
Yeah.
Right, it was the E3 like a month and a half after that game had gone up massive, and these guys were on cloud nine. They were like, "We're fucking set for life. It's great." And you got that impression in the interview, but God, I would not have guessed that like 3 years later, they would be way behind in the market.
Yeah. And what happened? What happened is the same thing happened to H1Z1.
Yeah.
The OG, the first one to go big was H1Z1. Yeah. They got complacent because they knew they were the only people. And then PlayerUnknown came out, killed H1Z1, and then they got complacent. And then Fortnite came and just ate everyone's food. No one was allowed to eat at this table anymore. They were the kings. And then Apex launched same day announcement, and they launched. and they had to fight a little bit. Fortnite held it for a long time, but anyways, that's besides the point. Apex Legends now in its current state is the best battle royale experience. Fortnite has gone into like a bit of more of a creative. It's more of like a sandboxy sort of vibe. But yeah, when it comes to games that I play frequently and all the time, that I put the most hours into, it would have to be Apex Legends this year.
I'll tell you what, their recent map they released is like super good.
Storm Point,
Storm Point is fantastic. It kind of, especially as like a sort of end of the year update, it really did solidify Apex as like a fantastic sort of like package. And yeah, you're right, and especially when comparing it to like Warzone with Caldera, which is also like this big release, but has all sorts of problems and little bugs and sort of balance issues and changes that aren't quite there. You compare that to Storm Point, and you're like, wow, it's not really a competition. Apex has like knocked out the park.
Yeah, definitely. I won't spend any more time on it. Everyone knows what Apex Legends is. It's great, awesome gunplay, awesome maps, awesome characters, awesome team play. Play Apex Legends if you're going to play any battle royale. Next is a game that I really had to fight myself to not put into number one. And to be honest, I'm not sure. I'm still unsure about this. Metroid Dread is the next runner-up
it's great.
on the list. No, but it's not my game of the year. That's the thing. Metroid Dread is the runner-up, but it's so close to being game of the year. Like it's unbelievable. It's so close. Yeah.
You know, that was on my list, right? It's excellent. Yeah. Not quite the best Metroid game.
Yeah.
I think that's probably still Super, but the fact that it's even in the conversation when Super Metroid is legitimately one of the best games of all time. Literally got the honor of being right on the front. It's right above my ear there, Super Metroid.
Nice.
Is the fact it's even in the conversation compared to Super is
yeah,
it says it all, really.
It got announced this year, right? It was announced this year and then came out this year.
That's how Nintendo rolls, though. I don't think a lot of people realise this about Nintendo, but Nintendo will even have a game finished and go in March, well, this game is done, but we haven't got a slot on our schedule, so we're going to sit on it for 6 months, 9 months. Nintendo does that regularly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But Metroid Dread is so well put together. Like, and it's a game that I went into sort of not knowing what it was like just before release, where I said, okay, I'm actually quite excited to play this now. And I played it. It is just badass, man. Samus is I don't know. She is just incredible.
The characterization of Samus in that game is really good as well. And considering the last one where Japan was the creative lead, even if they weren't, well, it was all Japanese development, but Metroid obviously split in two. The Prime series has so far been primarily made in the West, with Japan just overseeing it. And then you've got the main series, which is Japan. But Mercury Steam, of course, have done the last two. Well, they did the remake of Metroid 2, and then they've done this, and they're a Western developer there. Are they Spanish or Italian? One of the two.
They're Spanish.
But ultimately, it's still Sakamoto-san in Japan behind it. And the last game that he was sort of the helm of in that sense was Metroid Other M, which was not good in the way it characterized Samus. It was damaging to a really good character at worst, at best, and at worst, it was like quite sexist. But in this game, she's just fabulous, and I love it's. I don't want to.
Don't do it. Spoiler.
There are scant moments in this game when she talks, and when she talks,
I'm kind of out.
It's just no. You can say she talks. There's scant moments in this game when she talks. She talks in the opening, right?
Yeah.
But when she talks, it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Because she's so few words. And there's things about how she looks, right, as well as stuff like that. And
this is the thing we're speaking about, and we haven't even spoken about like the actual gameplay. Because do you still say Metroidvania when you're talking about Metroid, or do you just say Metroid?
I mean,
Does
It's like
Anyways,
Souls-like.
yeah. So everyone knows what Metroidvanias are now, but the way you just move and operate in this, that the level design, I've never seen a Metroidvania that has such a in-depth map. Like the map is crazy. It's so massive, but it's so clear about where everything is. Everything that's blocked, you know exactly what's blocking it. The way you
It's interesting because I don't think the map is actually that different to the other major Metroids. However, the thing that I would say is two things. One, there is an internal logic to that world which makes a lot of sense, more so than previous Metroid games where each area sort of felt self-enclosed. So the way that the redirecting of the lava, for instance, has a greater effect is really interesting. And the second thing I would say is they've just got way better at making sure that nobody gets stuck.
Yeah.
The hints are always just there, but it's not so heavy-handed that it causes problems in terms of making it a piece of piss.
Yeah, I got stuck. I got stuck once, and that was because I stopped playing the game for like a day, and then I just couldn't remember where I was when I came back. And that's the thing with these sorts of games. If you're going to play it, you need to play this to completion, because when you come back after a week, you will not know where the hell you are at all. You don't remember what objective you need to do, because there's no objective thing that says you need to do this. You just have to know in your head, oh, I was on my way to pull this lever that does this on the other side of the map. And it's just like, the progression is really good. You once you get, you got the morph ball, you can go here now, you've got this, you can do this now. And it feels awesome. And one of the best things about that game is the counter sequences. I think a lot of people didn't like those.
So
but
the funny thing is, the counters were in Samus Returns, the Metro 2 remake. That was one of the biggest additions to that game. And yes, they are enormously better.
They're so good. They're
unbelievable. They've tweaked them in just such a way to make
They're unbelievable. For the people that don't know, it's like say if you're doing a boss and you counter, you'll go into, so of course it's a side-scrolling platform or Metroid, but it will just like break the side scroller and go into like a full 3D animation, and it just looks insane every single time. And it blew me up. Some of the bosses, like towards the end, they just go all out, and it's incredible. Metroid Dread is very close. It was very close to my number one, and that's another game as well that goes into the same category that I would put Resident Evil 8 in. Of when someone asked me for a recommendation for a game, I would put that in there as well. Lastly, my game of the year is Monster Hunter Rise on the Nintendo Switch. There's a lot of stuff I could say about this game. Nintendo, I'm not sure if you guys got this email as well. They sent like a Spotify Wrapped esque sort of like list to my email saying, here's your most hours on this game, most hours on this game, most hours in this game. And Monster Hunter Rise was at the top of that. It's one of those games where I could not believe it was on Switch. I started Monster Hunter like seriously with World, and it translates so well over to Switch, because it's not the most graphically impressive, but when you understand that you're playing this on an iPad, basically, that's when you're like, okay, yeah. But it also highlights that graphics aren't everything, and gameplay can make a whole game. The loop of Monster Hunter, I'm just going through my notes now, the loop of Monster Hunter is quite unlike other games, because you sort of challenge yourself in Monster Hunter and you have to learn everything. Your gear does matter, but it's all about experience. It's all about experience, how you learn the monsters. And I know that's not for everyone, because once again, I feel like Monster Hunter, some like of the some other like roguelike games, Souls-born games, they have this thing where you need to actually be good. It's that simple. You need to be good at these games. And there's no difficulty slider. I know that's something that a lot of people want. It's like a difficulty slider, but you have to just get better. You have to learn for yourself and get better. But saying that, once you do kill these monsters, the satisfaction you get is unlike any other game. That old school, I actually beat this, because some of these fights take 30 minutes for one boss, 30 minutes. And you have to prepare. You need to make sure you've got this. You need to make sure you've got that before you even start the fight on the map. You need to go and gather crap on the map, which is arguably not my favorite, not my favorite part, like getting the endemic life and all that sort of crap. But these are like big ordeals. So it's very satisfying. I would have liked to see new weapons, but in Monster Hunter, of course, we now have the silk bind attacks. Each of the 14 weapons, there is three per. James, help me on this one. Is there 3 or 4? 3? Yeah, there's 3, and we're gonna speak about the anime stuff now again. They are incredible. Some of the moves when you throw them out, when they connect, and say if it connects and it kills the monster, there's nothing better, man. There's no better feeling for me in video games. Maybe like
let me ask you a question, because they've sort of splintered the series now, right? Where they've got these games which are the slightly more traditional, old school style of Monster Hunter, and then obviously they've got the World sub-series, and so the next game we get will probably be World 2 or whatever it ends up being called, and that'll probably be this coming year or early the year after, right?
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about that now? Has Rise made you more or less pumped for a new world, or now are you like, I'd almost want to skip that westernized one and go straight to the successor to Rise?
I think I want more Rise, to be honest. I think World is going to take too long, and I feel like they can't move as fast for the demand that people want.
That's why I disagree. I think they'll go one then the other now. A bit like how they've got Resident Evil and they're doing remake, new game, new game.
Yeah.
I think we will now get World 2, and then after that we'll get a sequel to Rise, and then we'll get a sequel to World, and they'll keep doing that until people are tired of it, because that's what Capcom does.
Yeah. Yeah, regardless of what they do, I would like it if they just continued with Rise. And of course, they've got Sunbreak. Sunbreak, is the name of it? Sunbreak's coming out.
Thing.
Yeah, and that's like a
PC version.
Iceborne. Yeah, that as well.
January,
yeah, so I would like them to continue. I'm so happy that people are going to get to play Monster Hunter Rise on PC, because it runs. Oh man, it runs like a dream. It's not a hard game to run. They're porting it from a Switch to a PC, so it's not a hard game to run, but it looks incredible. Mouse and keyboard controls are a no-no. If you are playing it on PC, get a controller. I played all of World with a mouse and keyboard. I don't know why. Don't do it. Mark my words. Yeah, Rise. Where was I? The moves feel incredible. With the weapons, I will say you'll probably play the whole story with one weapon, right? You'll kill all of the monsters with one weapon. If you go back and you choose a different weapon and you go, it feels like you're playing a completely different game. You can't play the way you just spent 50 hours playing the whole game. You need to change it up completely. And I think that's just incredible. Where was I? Wyvern riding. That felt gimmicky when I played the demo, but when you get used to it, it's incredible. The mobility with the wire bug, you're just flying around. You feel like Spider-Man.
Well, that's the coolest thing for me when looking at it. It's added like
so much mobility.
It's just so huge, right?
So much mobility. Yeah. That was. I think that's the best new feature. I feel like the clutch claw in Iceborne for World was good, but this is way better. This is way better. Yeah. The Palicos and Palamutes. You could do what? Come on, man. Like, and they have their own systems as well. They can have their own gear. You can command them somewhat of what to do. You can ride them in combat, in and out, and you can use items with when you're on them as well. The monsters too. This is a thing where I feel like it takes longer for them to make monsters for World than it does for Rise. And there's a lot of monsters in Rise, a lot, and mainly with Monster Hunter. This is throughout the whole series, but they do something special where every single one has a personality. Every single monster in Monster Hunter has a personality. Like you notice it a lot with maybe like James will know, like Tobi Kadachi will he'll hop up onto a wall and he'll just look at you. He'll look at you and be like, so what we doing here? Or like Magnamalo will he has this like God complex to him almost. He sort of, when he walks on the map, he's like, yeah, I'm the shit. Like, what? Come. Same thing with Zenoga. Zenoga's like the Thor of the game.
But that's, I think some of that is owed to World as well, right? Because that was World's big thing that he brought to the series, and they've just sort of taken it to another level here with this game. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Absolutely. And another thing as well with the weapons is weight. You lot would have heard me say this before, but I'm so adamant about weapons feeling like they have a punch, and you can feel them swinging. Like the other the other game on the completely opposite spectrum is like Biomutant.
Oh god,
a game where the combat feels like nothing, basically. Like you don't know what you're doing. Like nothing feels intentional. The swings feel weightless. Feels like you're hitting paper. Who said that? I can't remember who said it. Feels like they're hitting paper, but that's what it feels like. But Monster Hunter is the complete opposite. Like you can feel like the rhythm and the weight and the timing, and when it connects, it feels good. I'm not sure. I need to actually properly analyze it, but like there's almost like a freeze frame when things hit, and I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
No,
but a lot of games do that. Yeah,
that is a big.
Yeah.
Good fighting games do that well.
Yeah, I was going to say fighting games do that.
Like does that really well. The hit impact, like it's like deliberate lag almost.
Yeah,
it's not really hit stun because that means a different thing. But hit stun,
hit stop, I think, is the word for it.
Yeah,
when you hit someone and there's like a
little
where
pause,
it solidifies it makes it.
Well,
feel
it's like
but
hit stun is like, to me, hit stun is like how long it can be before the enemy can act again.
Yeah,
whereas this is more like the game does something in that moment of impact to make it prolonged, to make it hit harder.
Yeah,
And I think that is one thing that I wish all games with like hand-to-hand combat, weapon combat, melee combat would focus on a lot more and put a bit more emphasis on it, because when you nail it right, it is incredible, because all of Monster Hunter's weapons feel great, man, and they almost have, like I said a second ago, like a rhythm to them. It's like there's like a tempo to it that just makes it feel so good. It's just a complete package, and then there's the multiplayer stuff as well. Just hunt with your friends, and just have a good time, really. Yeah, Monster Hunter Rise is my game of the year, 100%, man, 100%. And I just want to big up all of the games that launched with no problems. That is it. I want to big up all of the games that launched with no problems this year.
Such a thing even exists?
that had minimal problems, that launched as a complete,
that's
as a complete game. Yeah. We won't mention the ones that didn't, but we all know. So that was a good talk, guys. Very long, very good, very good. I think what we listed was great. So Alex had Halo, James had the Forgotten City, Connor, you had Disco Elysium, Sherif, you had Returnal, and I had Monster Hunter Rise. I think that's a
good list.
It's a good list. And of course, I know Tom had Ratchet and Clank.
Yes.
Right.
Ratchet and Clank.
Get Tom.
Tom had Ratchet and Clank. But I enjoyed that conversation this year, as Alex said, like right at the start. It was good, not great. Good, not great. I think
good considering the circumstances.
It was a decent year, but
Yeah.
I think there were definitely some big misses. It's like you think about the GTA collection should have been such a slam dunk, and they just fucked it. And there's been a lot of moments like that. But you know, I do, and we've clearly had a lot of COVID delay stuff as well. But I'm pumped for next. I genuinely, you know, the stuff that is the stuff that we do, that we know about, is really, really exciting next year. But also, if stuff doesn't get delayed, the stuff I hear on the grapevine where I'm like, oh, next year's going to be sick. So, yeah.
This discussion next year hopefully will be a lot more exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There'll be 5 Elden Rings.
I mean, Elden Ring will be on the spot. You don't
Yeah,
need to
100%,
guaranteed.
man.
After that beta, holy shit.
last honorable mention, 6 years late. I I'm playing Bloodborne again. I'm about 75% of the way through. Once 6 years ago, I couldn't even make it past Cleric Beast on the bridge, and now I went back and I killed him first try.
Nice.
There you go.
And now I'm here. Honorable shout out to Bloodborne, man. Definitely.
Next year we'll play Sekiro, and then
yeah.
every day.
I'll probably play Sekiro in like January or something like that, but who knows? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Any closing statements, guys, before we wrap it up?
I'm looking forward to next year.
Capcom
announced Street Fighter 6, like Capcom Pro Tour Finals or whatever. Like, fucking hell, it's enough now. Time
to move on.
Time to announce that, and I'm hopeful. Weird. I don't know why I've launched into this, but I hope to see that next year. I hope to see, and I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting that I know about any of this. In fact, I'm deliberately not talking about anything I do know about. But I'm hopeful to see the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake next year. It'd be cool if Capcom could announce Dragon's Dogma 2.
It's got an open secret.
What else do I want? What else do I want next year? Street Fighter 6, which I said.
That'd be good.
I think they'll probably show Jedi Fallen Order 2. I'm looking forward to that next year.
I
really like the first game, and I want to know what they do with the second one.
Wicked game, so good.
Hopefully Dragon Age is out next year, but God knows. But I only really want that to come out because once that's out, we're closer to Mass Effect. I do like Dragon Age though, but I'm about Mass Effect.
E3 next year will be good, man. I think.
Hopefully, the thing is, a lot of publishers are moving away,
or whatever it's called.
E3 as a concept. Well, but just like a lot of developers just do their own thing now.
But they're gonna do them like together, though, right?
Maybe like the same.
No, not necessarily.
You don't think so?
They're like a bunch of.
I'm looking forward to
games.
Sonic 2. Looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the Sonic Lego set as well. That's coming out in the new year.
There's a bunch of like smaller games from like that they're not on the level of like an Elden Ring. Like the studio that made Ruiner, the Polish team that made Ruiner, is working on a first-person game that looks fucking out of this world. Stuff like that where you're like, I'm sure it will come out of nowhere. You're like, what the fuck was this, Ollie? And then it will be amazing because Ruiner is amazing. But yeah, stuff like this, I'm really like Sifu looks fucking badass.
Sifu, I was about to say Sifu.
You know what I mean? Like all that stuff that's not the top higher echelon stuff is like I'm sure going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And I just really hope now that they only have to focus on one platform plus PC.
For what?
Bethesda Game Studios can deliver a game that is not fucked on launch. So I'm just thinking about next year.
Bethesda's making a game, right?
Stop it.
Good. Also, I just want to say, next year we're gonna get Pokemon Legends Arceus, and
yes,
I'm really hoping that I can join. Do you know what? There's like this group of Pokemon people that I just can't be friends with because I don't like Pokemon, like the current style of Pokemon.
If anything's going to change it'll be this, because this game is going to be different.
Yeah.
However, some of the screenshots that were put out just yesterday.
Yeah.
Woo! That game
sus.
looks. I mean, I'm sure the game bit is going to be fine, but in terms of the way that game looks, I know it's hyperbolic to say it looks like it's from 2 generations ago, but it looks like it's from 2 generations ago. So, yeah.
I hope it's good. That's my end statement. Good chat, guys. Good chat.
Yeah.
Good chat.
This has been the VG247 team doing their game of the year. Hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you stuck around until the end. Peace out, everyone. Make sure you check out the website, of course. Like, subscribe, and yes, peace out.
See ya.